Welcome to our safety information video. We are sharing this information as of the second week of August in 2021. The reason I'm saying that is that guidance is updated pretty frequently, and we are staying on top of the guidance, and we will make our updates as new guidance is given to us. My name is Dr. Leah Gochi. I am the Superintendent of Schools for Elmwood Park School District 401. I have with me today our four building principals. I have Mr. Frank Kuzniewski, the principal of John Mills, Mr. Matt Lerner, the principal of Elmwood Elementary, Ms. Ashley Greneveld, the principal of Elm Middle School, and Mr. Doug Wilds, the principal of Elmwood Park High School. I also have with me today Dr. Kim Ontiveros, the Director for Curriculum and Instruction, and Dr. Carrie Smith, the Assistant Superintendent for Student Services. Today, we're going to talk about the updated guidance and the layered mitigation strategies that we will have implemented for the start of the school year. Again, this is constantly changing, so I just want you to be aware that we will make those changes and we will communicate that out to you as those changes are made. Okay, the first thing I want to share with you on this next slide is the updated guidance. And on the updated guidance, you've probably seen this before, but if you haven't, the biggest push in this updated guidance is the importance of in-person learning. Having our students back in the classroom 5 days a week is the #1 priority. And to be able to do that, we have to have our layered mitigation strategies. Now, our layered mitigation strategies will help keep all of us safe and keep everyone out of quarantine or isolation and keep you in the building. So the first was that importance of in-person learning. Second is the vaccinations, and then all the way through with our mask mandates, new definitions of close contacts from what we were used to last year. And then, of course, our contact tracing and quarantine measures in line with our Cook County Department of Public Health. So on the next slide, I'm going to talk to you about what that means for us. And those are our layered mitigations. So the first is hand hygiene. In schools, this is something that we've always had at the forefront to keep everybody healthy, but even more prevalent now as we are still enduring this pandemic. So we have our hand hygiene that we will be promoting. Cleaning and disinfecting practices. We have one additional custodian at each of our buildings that is really going to be helping to keep our lunchrooms clean, as students, of course, will have to remove their masks when they're eating. So we know that space is going to be one that we're going to pay particular attention to keep it clean. Next, we have the social distancing, and this is 3 feet when possible. Now, this is really important that they're allowing us to have this layered mitigation. If you remember last year, we couldn't have all of our students back because we had to be 6 feet apart. We couldn't fit everybody. That has changed for this year. So we have our 3 feet when possible, and each of the building principals will talk about that. Our adequacy of ventilation and filtration system. So we are, where we can, our windows are open. It's constantly running a check on our different HVAC systems that we have to ensure that we have, our ventilation and filtration systems tested to maximize the air quality in all of our classrooms. The next is the mask required on all of our school buses. This is in order from the Centers for Disease Control that we have to have masks on all of our school buses. We will have PPE on the buses. So if a student steps on the bus and doesn't have a mask, we will have a mask for them. Next, we have that masks are required for all students, staff, and visitors, regardless of vaccination status while they're indoors. This includes all of our athletics, extracurricular activities, anything that takes place indoors. So just as a clarification, if you are outside, masks are not required. I also want to talk to you about other times when masks are not required while students are indoors. That is, of course, when students are eating or drinking, masks are not required. If staff are alone in their classrooms, and the door is closed, masks are not required. If staff are in an indoor setting and they are with other fully vaccinated staff members, and masks are not required. If an unvaccinated staff member or visitor is in the meeting, you would have to mask become required again. And then if there is a medical condition that prevents somebody from not being able to wear a mask, that is another time when masks would not be required. The next layered mitigation strategy we have is the optional rapid testing. Now, if you were in our school district last year, this is something that we had last year as well. It is optional. A parent, guardian, or a staff member would have to sign off to allow for the test to be conducted. And this rapid testing is really important when I talk a little bit later about the test to stay strategy, which is one of the quarantine options that we have. Another layered mitigation that we have is providing vaccine information and opportunities for all those that are eligible. Currently, right now, anybody the ages of 12 and older are eligible for the COVID-19 vaccine. And according to the CDC and all the health departments, the vaccination is the current leading public health prevention strategy to end the COVID-19 pandemic. We have something called an eye care system that tracks all of the information for any of our students that have the vaccine. We're able to have that information, which is really important when it comes to quarantine, because students and staff that are fully vaccinated do not have to quarantine if they are showing no symptoms. For our staff members, they're completing the staff vaccination verification where they have to prove that they have received their vaccination. Again, this is important for when it comes to any of the quarantine measures that we need to follow. A big one here is the next layered mitigation is working in partnership with the Cook County Department of Public Health. That is any of the COVID-19 case reporting. So if we have a positive case that we know about, we report that to Cook County Department of Public Health. We contact any of the close contacts in partnership with the Cook County Department of Public Health. And we also send notification out to our school family. And that would come from the school nurse and the building principal, just letting you know that there was a positive case and that all close contacts have been contacted and given information on their next steps. So contact tracing, I want to talk a little bit more about with this layered mitigation. And this is following all of the guidelines from Cook County Department of Public Health. Any of these guidelines ever change, or if Cook County advises us in a different direction, that's what we need to follow, because the final say comes from the Cook County Department of Public Health and not from our school nurses or our school district. We work with them in partnership. So first, I want to talk a little bit about what would happen if you were deemed a close contact on first what a close contact is. In our school setting, so indoors in the school setting, a close contact is defined as a student or staff member that is within 3 feet for a cumulative total of greater than 15 minutes. So if you are greater than 3 feet away, you are not considered a close contact if within a positive case. So that's only for in the classroom. If you are in a different indoor setting outside of the classroom, the close contact definition grows to 6 feet. If you are within 6 feet of a close contact of a COVID positive case. I know that's very confusing. When I say it right now, it sounds confusing, but it's because in the school setting, we have all of these layered mitigation strategies that we can control, like the strict masking, like the cleaning and disinfecting practices, hand hygiene, things like that. So we would determine if you were a close contact, and we give you that rationale, and we would work with the health department on that. We would communicate with you. Now, if you are fully vaccinated, you do not have to quarantine as long as you are not showing symptoms. If you are not fully vaccinated, then you would take part in one of our 3 quarantine options that we have. And the options become something that's given to us by the Cook County Department of Public Health. The first option, if you did have to quarantine, is to quarantine for 10 days. And the 10 days begins after that last day of contact with the COVID positive individual. So if you are in contact with them on a Monday, your quarantine would begin on Tuesday. And you would be in quarantine for 10 days. And then as long as you didn't have any symptoms, you may remain fever-free, you'd be able to return to school after that 10th day. Another option of a quarantine is the shortened quarantine that we were able to implement starting last year. Last year it was only for adults, and for this year we can have it for students as well. And that is a 7-day shortened quarantine. but you need to get a PCR test after the 6th day that you are in quarantine. Again, we would walk through all of these options with you with the school nurse after consulting with the Cook County Department of Public Health. If you were negative after getting your PCR test, you'd be able to return to school after you got that negative results. The third option, which is new for us this year, and we are able to have it on site because we are offering strict masking. And we also have the rapid test, is something called the test to stay strategy. And if you are a close contact and you agreed to the test to stay strategy, you would be tested with the rapid test that we have on site on day 1, day 3, day 5, and day 7 of quarantine. And as long as you were negative with your test results, you would not have to quarantine. You wouldn't have to quarantine from your extracurricular activities, from school, from athletics, things like that. But you would have to agree to that. That's not something that we would just do. And we would have to get clearance from the Cook County Department of Public Health to be able to do that. So those are some different options if you were considered a close contact while you were in school. Again, that's only for those who are not fully vaccinated, or if you were fully vaccinated and you had symptoms, then the quarantine options would be feasible for you as well. Now, if you were a COVID positive individual, you would follow the guidance from Cook County Department of Public Health, which has you quarantined and in isolation starting the day after you, either the day after you started symptoms, if you were symptomatic, for 10 full days, or the day after you took your COVID-19 test, if you were asymptomatic or did not have any symptoms. You're able to return back to school after you remain symptom-free and you've completed that 10 days of isolation. So again, all this information will be shared with you if you encountered any of these scenarios or situations. So on the next slide, you'll see that we have some information. And the reason that I'm putting this in here is because the guidance is constantly changing. And so on our website is going to be the best place for you to go to get all of our updated information. We have a tab on our website called the Safe Return Plan. That's where our Safe Return Handbook is, and that's where we will keep everything up to date. I also have inside the Safe Return Plan is the COVID infection protocol guide for staff, and there's one for families. It's also going to be linked after this overview where you'll be able to take a look at this information, and it gives scenarios. What if I'm at a party over the weekend for a birthday party and I come in contact with someone that's COVID positive? What am I supposed to do? It gives you the step-by-step protocol, and then that allows us to make any of the updates necessary once we are given updates from the Cook County Department of Public Health. It also talks about, what if I'm sick? What if I have a fever of 104? Or what if I have some of the COVID symptoms and, I was around a lot of people, I think I might have COVID. Tells you exactly what you are supposed to do. And just as a good point of reference, it's to always call the school nurse if you are a family and you have some of those symptoms. If one of your students has one of those symptoms, if you are a staff member, it's to fill out your staff wellness form. The whole point, going back to the beginning of this, is to keep our students and our staff in school the 5 days a week. And that's, if we're sick, we're not feeling well, the best thing to do is to stay home, and we'll follow our safe protocol guidelines and the next steps of what you would have to do in order to return to school. Now, you've probably seen on the news, we have a travel advisory list. So we also give guidelines on what do we need to do if you travel to a state where, you're on that travel advisory list. Again, this would be just for those that are unvaccinated. It tells you exactly what you need to do, and that's to get one of those rapid tests 72 hours prior to returning or after you return. And all that information is in those infection protocol guidelines. Now, I mentioned a lot of times where you might have to quarantine, and Dr. Ontiveros is going to talk a little bit later about what that means for our students if they do have to quarantine. And that's something that for this upcoming school year, that would be the only time that a student would be remote learning, is if they are in quarantine based on any of the guidance that I've just shared, or from the Cook County Department of Public Health has put somebody in a quarantine or isolation. Then we would offer the remote learning for them. And we'll tell you a little bit more about that when Dr. Ontiveros shares. I know this is a lot of information, and it's our job to communicate out as best that we can to all of you. If you have questions, there's also going to be a question area at the end of this overview. So if you have any more questions that you need for us to answer, we can do that. Again, the best place to go is our district website, where we'll keep it updated. We'll keep all of our information listed there for you. So I just shared a lot of information, all of our layered mitigation strategies, and now I'm going to turn it over to first our elementary principals, Mr. Kuzniewski and Mr. Lerner, to talk about what those layered mitigation strategies mean for them at the elementary schools.
Thanks, Dr. Gochi, and hello, parents in 401, particularly those parents with students at the elementary level. As students are approaching the building, you will see signs on our doors, just reminding students that they'll have to, be having a mask on as they come into the building. And we've designed our entrance procedures to be quick, in the sense that they are able to come into a variety of entry points with the direct access to their homerooms. Those entrance and exit procedures have been communicated with our families already, and those will be coming again, so you have it fresh before the first day of school. The school day starts with our doors opening at 8:20 in the morning. We want our students to be in their homerooms by 8:35, so instruction can start on time at 8:40, and dismissal for students is at 3 o'clock. When it comes time for social distancing, we are going to be spacing our students 3 feet apart to the best of our abilities. And we are excited to have our students with their friends in their student cafeteria. As a reminder that lunch and breakfast are free to our families this year, and students will have to wear a mask when they're in the cafeteria unless they are eating or drinking.
This is Mr. Lerner, the principal of Elmwood Elementary. And at the elementary, we have recess every single day. And so students will be outside for recess for 30 minutes each day. As Dr. Gochi talked about earlier, while the students are outside, masks will not be mandatory. We are also excited to offer extracurricular activities. We'll resume this year, and that will include different clubs and activities at each building. We will share information when that comes, but again, during that time, while we are indoors, if we are indoors, students will be wearing masks and abiding by the 3 feet of social distancing. If we're able to go outside and do some different activities, again, because we'll be outside, it gives us the option to not wear a mask while we are outside. Something we know that's very important to our working families is BASIC, our before and after care. So we are excited to be able to offer BASIC this year at both John Mills and Elmwood. Just as a reminder, BASIC begins from 7 a.m. and goes to 8:35, and after school from 3 to 6 at each school. Again, during the time that they're in the building, they will be wearing their mask, and we will be adhering to the 3 feet when feasible. And at Elmwood, if you're coming to BASIC, you will come through door 10. And at John Mills, you will enter through door 9. If you have any specific BASIC questions, we included the email of the BASIC staff at both buildings. But again, we know it's very important for our working families to be able to offer BASIC, and we're excited to be able to do it as long as we're continuing to follow our safety protocols.
Thank you, Mr. Lerner, Mr. Kuzniewski. Ms. Grunewald.
Hi, everybody. Miss G, the principal at Elm Middle School. So excited to have you guys back in the building this year. Just a couple of things from us, reminders. If you are a walker, a bike rider, or any student being dropped off, you are going to enter by your last name. So A through G, you're coming in door 1. H through Q, you're coming in door 3. R through Z, you're going to come in through door 4. And our bus riders, as always, door 2 is reserved for you. This all went out in our letter as well, but here it is again, another recap for you. As far as social distancing at Elm this year, we will make sure that we are keeping students 3 feet apart when feasible. First, lunch, all of our students eat by grade level, and we're going to take it one step further, and students will be seated by their advisory. When students are not eating or drinking, they will have their mask on when they are in the lunchroom. And then for in-class procedures, students will be required to have a mask on at all times, and they will be seated 3 feet apart when feasible. We're going to try and get students outside for activities as much as we can this year to get those mask breaks in. Say that 10 times fast. And then we are also excited to have our extracurriculars back up and running again this year at Elm Middle School. So more to come on that. Come to open house on Thursday. We're going to be going through our clubs and activities, and then we will be having our regular athletic season this year as well. And so we will be abiding by notify all of the adherents from the Leiden Norwood Athletic Conference for students to be able to participate in those seasons. We're so excited to have everybody back. Bye, guys.
Thank you, Ms. Groneveld. Mr. Wilds.
Hello, everybody. Again, my name is Doug Wilds. I'm the building principal of Elmwood Park High School. And similar to all the other principals, we will have various entrance and exit procedures here within our building. Door 1, as normal, will be our student drop-offs. Door 5, off the east side of our building near the cafeteria, is where our buses will drop off students. And then always in the back, in the south lot, door 19 is where our students who are driving and parking in our south lot will come in. Similar to all of the other buildings, our social distancing procedures, we will try, when feasible, have 3 feet between each student at all times for social distancing purposes. For lunch, we will be eating primarily in the cafeteria, but we do have outside tables near the tennis courts. And in addition, in the library, when we're capable and weather permitting, we'll also have library space set aside for lunches. Again, just like everybody else, students must wear masks in the cafeteria, or while eating lunch, they can take their masks off, but when they're not eating, they need to put those back on. Again, in all of our classrooms, we will continue to wear masks at all times, and we will also be seated 3 feet apart when possible. And finally, similar with Ms. G, all extracurricular activities, we are excited to have them. And in order for us to continue to have them safely and have good, complete seasons, we must wear masks at all times indoors, but masks are optional for students during our outdoor activities. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Mr. Wilds. Dr. Ontiveros.
Hi, Dr. Ontiveros, Director for Curriculum and Instruction. I wanted to go into a little bit more detail about what Dr. Gochi shared earlier about remote learning and what that looks like this year. So beginning with this school year, all schools must resume full in-person learning. The only time that students are allowed to be remote is if they are quarantined with consistent guidance and requirements from the local health department. What will remote learning look like if you are in the elementary school or 6 through 12? So there's going to be a consistent checklist of communication. Once you've contacted the nurse and have correct documentation for quarantine purposes, the nurse will communicate with the families as to the quarantine period that's required. After that, the communication will go to the attendance clerk, in which she will notify all the classroom teachers and anyone associated with the student to make sure that we have a smooth transition to remote learning. In the elementary buildings, we have dedicated remote teachers. Parents will receive an email from the attendance clerk letting them know the days of the quarantine and a link to join that classroom for their quarantine period. The day before a student arrives back, the nurse will contact the family to ensure we are good with the quarantine and the student can return to the classroom. As far as the 6 through 12, it is a similar process where communication has to go through the district nurse to make sure that they have the proper documentation for the quarantine period. Once they receive that documentation, they will communicate again with the attendance clerk. We want to make sure that all students and teachers are in the loop of students that will be out for the remainder of the time. Once they have established that time period, families will get an email that students in the middle school and high school will be able to join the Google Classroom to make sure that they can keep up with the assigned classwork. All communication will be done in a consistent manner to make sure that everybody is informed. Students will be notified the day prior to back to school to make sure that the consistent travel and everything is set up for them to return to in-person learning. We want to make sure that students do not miss time when they are at home in quarantine.
Thank you, Dr. Ontiveros. So we've gone through quite a bit of information in a short period of time, and we know that you may have questions, and we are here to help answer any of those questions and to keep that open line of communication. If you need something, please reach out to the building principals, the school nurses, and linked in this description of this video, you'll see a form that you could go ahead and you can ask any of your questions as related to this direct safety video. thank you for joining us today. And as always, you know, we are looking forward to having everybody back in person and keeping everyone safe, following the guidelines that are given to us, and kicking off this school year to be one that allows all of our students to continue to grow and learn just like they have in the years past. Thank you.